Across a week of war, tariffs, and primaries, the loudest divide wasn't over what happened, but whether each event proved a system broken or a system working exactly as designed. This is Parallax Newsroom. American soldiers died in military strikes involving the United States and Iran, escalating the ongoing conflict. On July 21, the story drew broad coverage, with the Associated Press noting Trump commented on the action while Vox asked, "Is the U.S. at war with Iran again?" And Fox News focused on Hegseth defending war costs as the Pentagon sought more funding. By July 22, right and center coverage thinned while lean-left outlets surged, with NBC News and CNN spotlighting the $37 billion price tag, and The Guardian detailing the moment of the attack that killed Khamenei. The shift shows that as the conflict's human and financial costs became clearer, left-leaning outlets amplified accountability framing, while right and center attention pivoted elsewhere. Zoran Mamdani stated he does not have the legal authority to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu in New York City. On July 21, The Hill framed Mamdani's comments as spotlighting deepening democratic divisions, while the New York Post labeled him an anti-Israel socialist, and CNN focused on Laura Coates' take on the threats. By July 22, left and lean-left outlets expanded coverage, with NBC News and NPR noting Mamdani's argument that the federal government should act, and CNN reporting he acknowledged lacking authority. The New York Post shifted to note he ripped Netanyahu as a war criminal unwelcome in the city. The shift shows left outlets moved from spotlighting party friction to amplifying Mamdani's moral argument, while right coverage kept its focus on his ideological profile. Trump and the Department of Homeland Security implemented election security policies and raised doubts ahead of the midterms. On July 20, the story drew wide coverage, with the nation calling Trump's speech a threat, Fox News highlighting DHS threats to cut federal funding for states refusing voter roll security pushes, and NBC News fact-checking the address. By July 21, right and lean-left outlets dropped the story entirely, leaving only the Associated Press and Vox to continue, with Vox oddly framing the speech as a good sign for democracy. The shift shows that once the initial salvo landed, right outlets moved on from their own framing victory, while left coverage fractured between alarm and cautious optimism. The House of Representatives passed a major defense funding bill that includes provisions for the Iran war. On July 23, The Washington Times and the Associated Press both framed the package as funding Trump's priorities, while The Guardian noted the standoff over Israel and voter agenda. By July 24, right coverage disappeared and lean-left outlets dominated, with NBC News and NPR highlighting that the House approved a resolution to end the war in a rebuke to Trump, and Axios reporting the House rebuked the war. The shift shows that, as the bill advanced, left-leaning outlets pivoted from the spending total to the war powers rebellion, while right outlets that championed the funding package went quiet once the anti-war vote became the headline. The Trump administration announced new tariffs on Canadian goods. On July 21, right outlets led the charge, with Breitbart and the Washington Times framing the tariffs as a response to Canadian discrimination against American autos and boycotts of U.S. alcohol and dairy, while the Associated Press cited disputes over autos, alcohol, and cheese. By July 22, right outlets dropped the story and left and lean-left outlets picked it up, with Vox declaring a trade war and NBC News reporting the new tariffs. The Associated Press shifted to cover Trump, threatening further tariffs over wildfire smoke. The shift shows right outlets led with the justification narrative before stepping back, while left outlets entered late to frame the action as economic escalation. Multiple candidates entered the race for a U.S. Senate seat in South Carolina. On July 21, Breitbart and the Washington Times framed the race through a Republican primary lens, with Breitbart highlighting Trump's endorsement of Nordone and the Washington Times reporting Russell Fry entered the race. By July 22, the Washington Times dropped the story while NBC News joined, framing Nordone as running for a full term after Trump urged her to jump in, and Axios kept its neutral launch framing. The shift shows that, as the Republican field grew, right outlets focused on the endorsement power dynamic before seeding the narrative, while lean-left coverage entered to frame the race through Trump's direct involvement. Spain won the World Cup, and a controversy emerged regarding players shaking Trump's hand. The Associated Press straightforwardly reported Spain's victory over Argentina on Ferran Torres' goal in extra time. NPR similarly focused on the championship result, noting Spain's second title. Breitbart framed the story around a Spanish goalkeeper, concerned he may go to prison for refusing to shake Trump's hand, while the New York Post described Trump crashing the trophy lift photo. The neutral read shows center and lean-left outlets kept the focus on the match result, while right outlets amplified the political drama surrounding the presidential handshake and its alleged consequences. Trump-backed candidates, including Andy Biggs, won their Republican primaries in Arizona. MSNBC framed the results as putting an election denier in charge, quoting Governor Hobbs, and called Arizona election denial central. NPR and The Guardian noted Trump-backed candidates and 2020 election deniers won their primaries, with The Guardian highlighting the Hobbs-Biggs matchup. The Hill took a more neutral approach, reporting Republicans' eye in Arizona comeback, and noting an election denier won the GOP Secretary of State primary. The neutral read shows left and lean-left outlets emphasized the election denial stakes for democracy, while center coverage framed the results through the lens of electoral competitiveness and party strategy. Epstein survivors met with Todd Blanche regarding the Epstein files. MSNBC reported a Democratic lawmaker defended survivors after a tense meeting, noting they are sick of this. NBC News described a survivor calling the meeting emotional and not productive. The Hill quoted a survivor who said they were gaslit during the Blanche meeting. The neutral read shows left and center outlets converged on a critical framing of the meeting's outcome, with each emphasizing survivor frustration, though they varied in intensity, from MSNBC activist framing to the Hill's direct quote of alleged gaslighting and NBC's measured assessment of productivity. Across 9 stories this week, the pattern was clear. Right and center outlets led early with framing that favored their political stakes, then quietly dropped stories as the facts turned less favorable, while left and lean-left outlets entered late to amplify accountability angles the early coverage had ignored. Subscribe for the framing gap